Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good day, depending on where you're watching us from. Welcome to day 3 of the 7-day 5K or 5,000 steps challenge. I'm so glad we've done day 1, we've done day 2, we've done day 3 today. It's incredible, it's amazing. It's good to see you guys joining. I have been really receiving very encouraging messages, and I'm so very grateful to hear from you guys. Those who are not even active on the group, but yet they're telling me they're participating. I received a sweet message from a dear friend of mine today, and she was telling me like she's been watching the videos. She watched day 1 and she's been really motivated, gone off sugar, and she's doing 6,000 steps, even much more than I had anticipated. That's really amazing. I received another message again from one of my sisters who was like, at 5 in the morning, I'm already done with my 5,000 steps. That is incredible. I've heard of so many other people that have started running, and you know yourself, I'm sure if you're watching these, and it just makes my heart happy. These are these things that make my heart really smile because, as I said, I am doing this challenge, inviting you guys into my life, into doing this with me because honestly, I'm talking about things that work. I can't talk about things from the textbook, obviously, because I have had the education to be able to give you textbook knowledge, but I am not sharing with you, even though I'm using some of my knowledge that I've gained alongside studying the various degrees that I've studied. But it's not about that, it's about more talking about practical things, as they say, experience sometimes, not always, but sometimes is the best teacher. So today is day 3, and I'm just gonna quickly, today I'm not gonna do a very long recording because of course I wanna honor your time. And of course I've also realized the longer the recordings, the more difficult it is for people to follow them along. So I'm gonna try to make these as quick as possible, but also to ensure that I'm giving you the content that I feel and believe that you will be able to do. So before I go ahead, I just want to invite you wherever you are, from your room, your house, wherever you're watching this from, grab yourself a glass of water, pour yourself some water, and then tuck yourself down and wait as we talk about today. And the topic of today, obviously, you might guess from seeing me with a glass of water, it will be discussing hydration. Before I do hydration for today, I like just to recap what we did on day 1 and day 2, obviously, because today is day 3. Day 1, we took some time and I just wanted to talk to you guys. And lo and behold, I still have issues, but I've decided I'm just going to go old school because those who are here yesterday, you know, I said I love old school, love pen and paper. Maybe that's why I'm a teacher. And so on Monday, I really wanted to come on and share my slides and talk to you guys about things that I've learned and things like that, but obviously it didn't work the way I wanted it to work. And as a result of that, I just decided I'm going to come anyways and just share with you guys my story. Just tell you a little bit about myself, just tell you a little bit about my journey, tell you a little bit how I've gotten to where I am today and where I started from. And then yesterday I came in and I talked about calories. So I explained to you about calories. I told you guys not all calories are equal. And I tried to explain to you how you can do some swapping of calories or changing them around. So swapping, sorry, so that you can end up with much more calories that are going to be beneficial to your body. And at the end of the day, you will be able to kind of in a way benefit from those calories rather than when you end up just eating something that your body will not benefit much from it, but it still gives you energy that might just end up being stored in the body. So I talked a little bit about that, and one of the things that I try to illustrate, I say to you guys, is better when you're thinking about maybe filling up your plate, let half of the plate be maybe fruits and vegetables, but mainly vegetables because of the calorific load or quality that will be in there. You'll have much more less calories in vegetables, less fruit, less sugars and things like that compared to if you're going to end up eating or consuming things like fruits for and etc. So today I'm going to be talking about hydration, and that's something that I feel is quite very important. And as we go along, I just want to invite you, as I said, get a glass of water or brew yourself some tea or get yourself some fluid that you can be drinking as we go along. Because one of the things that I strongly believe, and I'm going to get a little bit more into notes today so that I can at least try to explain these things a little bit more into details. I believe strongly that most of the time we are a people or a nation or individuals that we don't really end up having enough of the water that we need to drink or the fluids that we need to drink. And so I want to take a minute and let you and ask you a question. And this is something that I want you to work on it by yourself. And it's a question that I want to ask you to do like a little bit of a recall from yesterday or even just today, since morning. How many drinks did you consume? If you're online, you may want to pop that in the chat. I'll pick it up at some point. And how many portions of fruits and vegetables did you eat? Why am I asking these questions? Because when you're thinking about the fruits and vegetable consumption, there are actually fruits that can contribute towards your water consumption in a day or fluid consumption in a day. And they can actually include things like if you're looking at things like strawberries are about 92% water. If you're looking at things like watermelons, there are about 92% water as well. Yesterday I talked about cucumbers, which are 96% water. Cantaloupe is about 90% water. If you're looking at things like pineapples, they are like 87% water. So when you're consuming these foods, what you're just doing is that at the end of the day, you're allowing yourself to consume more water. And I will tell you why, the reasons why we need to consume water, and I'll also talk a little bit about the reasons or the factors that affect our water intake. So let me talk about myself as an example. I am generally somebody who loves tea. If you have ever lived with me or you know me very well, you know that I'm a tea girl. I love drinking lots and lots of teas. And at the end of the day, most of the time, I find that my fluid intake is usually contributed to by my tea intake. And of course, there are different ways in which you can have fluids. That's why I'm talking about hydration and not necessarily talking about water intake, because you can be hydrated from consuming other different fluids, not necessarily just water. So when I drink my teas, particularly during the winter months, I find it much more difficult just to sit down with a glass of water, sipping through the day, because it can be quite very cold here. So what I do most of the time is that I love brewing lots and lots of tea, so I can have a couple of mugs of teas in a day, and I end up really easily striking the required or the recommended. How many liters of water are we supposed to drink per day? Any ideas? Put them in the chat if you know exactly how many liters or gallons of water you're supposed to drink. Some people might say 8 glasses of water. Some people might say 2 liters of water. I've been on meetings and people are saying they're doing water challenges and they're drinking 4 gallons of water, 5 gallons, whatever it is, and that's like almost 5 liters of water, which is amazing. But then just try to think about it is that let's say minimum we set at least 2 liters at least a day. You can have that contributed to by various things that you can consume, simply because water is important in so many different physiological processes in the body, and I'll talk a little bit about them as we go along. So you find that water can actually, the consumption of water and fluid, I don't want to use water so much, but I want to use the term fluid more. It actually is affected by so many things. Going back to my story, I said like during the winter months, I find it much more difficult just to go ahead and sip a glass of water compared to now it's very hot in the UK and you're finding everybody's like, oh my God, water, 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 water. And so these are some of the things that can affect us. Things like the weather. When it's too hot, we might find we're reaching out for more water. When it's cold, we might find that we are naturally not feeling thirsty. And that's where the biggest problem is most of us usually leave and wait until we feel thirsty for us to drink, and that's a problem because you're supposed to constantly hydrate yourself so that you don't allow your body to get to a point where it starts to feel thirsty. There are also the time of the day. Some people will drink a lot of water in the mornings, some people will drink in the evenings, and generally I drink water throughout the day. And sometimes I can wake up in the morning and just have a glass of water. When I come back, particularly back from running, I take my water, I put in some electrolyte, I put in sometimes BCAA, which is the branch chain amino acids, and then I just have that water before I leave for work. It also can be affected by things like test preferences. If you are interested in weight loss as well, it can impact on your water intake. I usually have these conversations, lots of them with my little man. He'll come to me and say, Mommy, I'm feeling very hungry. And we've just had dinner. And I'll go like, really? Are you hungry? And he goes like, yes, yes, yes. Can I have a pudding? And I go and I say, have you had some drink after dinner? And he says, I forgot. And then we give him some drink, and immediately after that, that desire to have something else to eat has gone because he's confusing his thirst to be hunger. And that's one of the things that we are constantly working on. I'm constantly telling him, you need to learn to know the difference between when you're hungry and when you're thirsty. And so if you have things like issues to do with weight and you're trying your journey, you are on a journey of weight loss, you might want to choose to try and use fluids so that at the time when you filled your tummy with those fluids, it means that you will not have more capacity to be able to add more food on top. And somebody once said to me, one of the easiest ways to think about it is all we can do. It's just when you're feeling a little bit thirsty or you're feeling hungry, the first thing to do is drink a glass of water and then give it a minute and feel, am I still thirsty? Am I still hungry? Sorry. If you're still hungry, then you're hungry. But if you're not feeling hungry, then there's no point of eating. Then at that point, it was just because you're thirsty and you're confusing your thirst with hunger. So in that case, you don't need to eat, and that can actually help you to be able to shed off a bit of some weight because you're prolonging the duration between one meal and the other. And we know very well that can help a lot with enhancing insulin sensitivity. And what that just means is that at the end of the day, you can end up starting to break down any stored or reserved energies. Also, things like convenience. We know of places, sadly, we've heard of things like Ukraine, the dam that busted, and people have had very difficult times be able to get drinking water. You might find again things like availability of that water. You might find attitudes of people, cultural differences. Some people, just because of their culture, seasonality, perception about product safe quality and safety. Some people will tell you they can never drink tap water because it's not clean and things like that. And all those important things that contribute towards your water intake. You can make a list for yourself. You can look at those things that actually look like barriers that make you not be able to consume enough fluids or water at the end of the day. So, what are some of the properties or the functions of water in our bodies? I hope by now you know that the human body, over 80% of the human body is made up of water. Around 80 to 85% of the human brain is actually water. The lungs are made up, they are 75 to 80%. There is about 8 to 10% in our teeth, even though they are very strong and very, very tough. The skin is composed of about 70 to 75% of water. The blood is 80% of water. The heart has about 75 to 80% of water. The kidneys have almost 80 to 85% of water. The muscles have 70 to 75% water. Because water is important, it is something that is usually used, and most of the time it can be used as a solvent to transport different molecules and substances around our bodies. It can be used in transport and absorption. It can be used in what is called homeostasis. It can be used in evaporation and heat loss. So like when you are very hot, you might end up cooling yourself with water, or when you again, if you're feeling cold, you can end up having like a hot shower, or if you drink hot water, that can also help you. Excretion. We have so much that we eliminate from our bodies after all the food that we've drunk, we've eaten, and the drinks that we drink. They need to be processed, and after that, we need to get rid of that at the end of the day. And the water helps in excretion. You find that at the end of the day, you can actually be able to know how much water you're consuming, if you are hydrated or not hydrated. Personally, I find that looking at the color of pee does help me know today you haven't drunk enough water. If your pee is much more brown, it means basically your kidneys are really struggling to get rid of the waste, and you might want to really hydrate yourself. And the more you drink, if you drink and you're finding your pee is going towards clear colors, then that could be a very good indicator that you have been drinking enough. Water can also be used to protect your body. When it's too hot, it's the water that will help you with cooling so that at the end of the day, you do not want to overheat, and that can result in various different dangers in the body. Of course, when you're thinking again in things like I've mentioned already, excretion of waste. So we know that around 1,300 mils per day of urine is usually excreted, and that's like excretion of waste through urine, and water contributes quite a lot of that. You need about 60 mils of water in feces. The lungs can respire around 300 mils, and of course, this vary across individuals per day. And the skin, through perspiration, you can always almost lose about 920 mils, and that's why for sure you need to consume much more liters of water per day. One of the things that I've already mentioned, do not use thirst as a reliable indicator for water needs, because by the time you're feeling thirsty, it means you have allowed yourself to go a little bit more to the end of getting into dehydration. And so do not allow yourself to wait until you start to feel thirsty before you are able to have a drink. Of course, there are some people who will be more at risk when it comes to this issue, particularly the elderly, the younger people. The children are much more difficult to kind of can find it to be difficult as well. And so when you're looking at all these important things, it's important to think, particularly if you're older, if you're pregnant as well, those are some of the things that you can think about in terms of hydration. So one of the things that I would love to talk about is different types of water. Let's say, for example, if you're drinking water as a way of hydrating yourself, you may be asking yourself a question today: tap water or bottled water? Which one should you go for? Personally, I feel like somebody can think like water that is tap water is not clean, so in the end, they need to go for bottled water. But if your water undergoes filtration or is treated before it's released into the tap, in most of the places in the developed countries, that will be the case. Then you can drink tap water. But if you're in a place where you are insecure or you don't feel secure about the safety of the water, there are a couple of ways that you can do to enhance the purity of the water. You can do filtration. You can buy a filter and do the filtration. Or you can start, if you're worried about things like waterborne diseases, you're better off starting by boiling the water, so you kill off all the microbes, and then filtering it. You remove any of the impurities, and then after that you can end up with clean, pure water for drinking. Because of course you can go for the bottled water, but one of the difficulties with that is that you don't know how long it stayed in the shops, for example, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be much more pure as such, of course, because we know spring water needs to be collected only at the spring, and it must be bottled at the source for it to be able to maintain its hygiene standards, and something sadly that you may not be able to tell or talk about in all the countries around the world. If you're talking about mineral water, you need to have at least 250 parts per million bar and above of dissolved solids in there. And of course, when it comes to sparkling water, it's just water that has been carbonated at the end of the day. So just to talk a little bit more into a few details with the guidelines for water intake. For children who are 0 to 6 months, most of the time, of course, they encourage exclusive breastfeeding. So the children will get the water from the breast milk of their mothers. But if you are kind of course, formula feeding, that's something that when you're preparing your formula, you need to be careful and to think about. And of course, if you're giving them, even if it's formula milk, at the end of the day, you should realize that if you're using that formula, you'll have any way to dissolve it in water. But if it's human milk as well, human milk, milk in general, whether it's human or otherwise, is constituted mainly of water. When it comes to children that are, let's say, teenagers, they need about 2.4 liters per day. And men, dependingly, other people say, like the World Health Organization encourages men to drink about 3.7 liters, whereas women 2.7 liters. But of course, most of the time, it's recommended at least aim for 2 liters of water. So when you're feeling like you're having less water, there are some of the things that you should be wary of. There are some of the things you should be thinking about that can actually end up being problems to do with not having enough water consumption. Going back to myself as an example, whenever I don't drink enough water, I tend to have a lot of breakouts. So if you ever see a video of me or if you ever see anything with me and you see like around myself, I think there's something I saw here in the morning, my skin breaks out quite a lot if I haven't taken time to drink enough water. If I haven't taken enough time to drink enough water, again, I tend to have like so much of puffy eyes. I tend to look really, really like somebody who's swollen, and it's just because my body really loves to get enough water to be able to flush out all the toxins that it doesn't need in the body. If you're also feeling constantly fatigued, you might want to ask yourself, am I fatigued because of maybe I have other underlying issues, or could it be that I'm just fatigued because I've got less consumption of water? Some people can go to the doctors and they'll be told you have high blood pressure. There can be things like digestive disorders. We've heard, you may have heard somebody saying they are constipated, and sometimes it just can be because they're eating food. Of course, they might be eating their rapid, but sometimes not drinking enough can result in things like constipation, and it can result in digestive disorders. There can be like weight gain as well from not being able to drink enough water, because obviously the water can help a lot in the end with filling up some of the volumes that you might need to be able to fill up with the food and things like that. So now that we've talked a little bit about the water, we've talked about the differences in which, like the fluid intakes and things like that, I just want to give you some practical ways. And today will be a very, very quick recording. I'm not going to take a whole of your time today. And so I want to just do a quick summary and show you practical things that you can do to be able to end up consuming enough or at least good amounts of liquid or fluids throughout the day. The first thing you can start with, of course, as I said, is if you started with me, by now your glass should be empty. And if it's not empty, maybe you should be emptying it now, because at least you can be able to top it up again. And hopefully before the end of today, you'll have gotten yourself at least 1 or 2 glasses of more water in. You can turn on your kettle and make yourself some teas. You can also drink coffee, can be part of the intake of fluids, but be careful because coffee can be it can be something that can actually cause you to be dehydrated. So when you're drinking coffee, try to drink it in moderation rather than thinking about coffee, because it also has its own issues. It can also have impact on your mood. It can also cause stimulation, and that's something to think about at the end of the day. And if you are sometimes like me, if I'm very honest, when particularly during the winter times, I am not motivated to drink water. So there are things that you can do. You can get yourself things like a lemon. I love lemons and I live in a house with lemons. If I had anything I could ever plant in my backyard, it would be lemons, because lemons are really good for health. You can just slice your lemon into smaller chunks. I don't know if you can see that, right? I might need to bring my video a little bit down. Having a couple of lemon slices in your water can actually help you because it smells delicious. The scent itself is very attractive. It actually makes me to want to drink water. But if you leave it again, of course, for with time, there will be infusion, and that infusion can help you the lemon to kind of absorb. And you can do that with lime as well to absorb that flavors and that taste as well into the water. But other thing about it as well, because lemons are very good and very rich in vitamin C. I talked about yesterday antioxidants, and these are things that can help your body again to fight things like colds, to fight things like diseases, at the end of the day, pardon me, and that can be a very good way of encouraging yourself to have vitamin C. And vitamin C is also very good, particularly when you're trying to enhance your intake of things like iron and you don't want to end up with iron deficiency anemia. You need to eat your foods together with vitamin C, and sometimes that's why they encourage you, if you're if you're eating food that is rich in iron, to always consider at the same time to have at least a glass of orange juice. So you'll have your water, you'll have your vitamin C in there, and of course that's going to encourage you. Some people also say vitamin C, they say lemon does help with weight loss, and that's something that I've heard people that wake up in the morning, what they do is take their lemon, take some warm water, not cold. Do not use hot water, of course, because you destroy all the good parts in there. Take a glass, half fill maybe with cold water, half fill with warm water, and then just squeeze in your lemon. Once you squeeze in your lemon, you can use like a squeezer, lemon squeezer, to get all the lemon out, juice out. And then after that, some people say you can actually add in a little bit of honey, just stir it, and then drink it on an empty stomach, and then that can be your morning awakening of your digestive system. Try it. It's something that I've tried it a few times and I enjoy when I do that. So just take like a glass of cold water, top it up with hot water or warm water, and then squeeze in lemon juice, and then with honey, because you don't want to put in the honey in there once it's still hot. It's gonna just kill all the nice bacteria in there, and then at the end of the day, microbes, sorry, in there, and that's not gonna be beneficial. That's something that you can do if you want to enhance yourself, your drinking water. The other thing that I find myself has really helped me with drinking water is investing in a bottle like this, because as you can see here, it does give me like kind of motivations. I'm a little bit like behind, but of course because I wanted to show you how this works. So I start off in the morning. So if you start off, it's still full. That's in the morning at 7 a.m. And then you start drinking as you go along the day. And it actually tells you by 9 you should be down here, by 10 you should be there, by 1 p.m., 3 p.m., by 9 p.m. you should be finishing off. So it's kind of in a way, in around 10 hours you finished off your 2 liters. And of course it's like, yeah, it's 2 liters or 2000 mils of water. And I love this so much because when I do this, I usually bring one of these with me to work. And when I do this, it's just I ensure that I filled it up. And as I'm going through my dates on my desk, and I'm just sipping on it as I'm going. And at the end of it all, it does help me. By the time I'm coming back home, usually I've finished with that. So you can actually measure how much water are you drinking in a day. The other thing that you can do as well, you can invest in just have not investing necessarily, but you can as well do glass counting. So every time you drink a glass, you count it. You're like, okay, I've done a glass of water, and then you move on until you get to a point and you're like, I've finished off all the glasses that I needed. One of the things that I need to really really mention as I bring this to a close is one of these. There are people that will die today, something that can be inevitable. You can fast from food for up to 40 days and you will still survive. But after 40, you cannot go in this unless it's supernatural and God ordained for more than 7 days, as it's been said, without drinking water. You can go on a fast for a long, very long fast, get away from food, but because our bodies are very important and they are all made up of water, they basically need that water, and we need that water to survive. And so when it gets to a point that you are getting yourself lagging behind and not being able to keep up with your water intake, just kind of remind yourself you want to be well, you want to be thriving, and at the end of the day, our bodies enjoy when we give them the water. When I drink my water, as I've told you, I glow a lot. I don't do much on my body. I don't do much of makeups and things like that. It kind of, in a way, does pay me back when I have drunk my water. And it just helps me a lot to keep well and to keep healthy. And so, one of the things that I would like to encourage you is as you're on this challenge, if you have been drinking 8 glasses of water, a couple of liters of water per day, well done. If you haven't been doing that, why not take these other coming days as a challenge and begin just drinking water? You might just start with one extra glass a day. If you haven't been drinking at all, start with one glass. If you've been drinking one glass, add another glass. And then the other day, add another glass. And if you're finding it difficult, you might just start to kind of in between drink a glass of water, get yourself a cup of tea. You'd realize that I haven't talked about alcohol as a part of the fluid intake because, of course, that is going to cause you to be more dehydrated and it has its own health issues. But it's much more looking at things like the teas, looking at things. And teas are very good because, of course, they can be very high, particularly if you've got the herbal teas. You can have very high antioxidants in there. They have very good pigments in there that can protect your body. And so it's an encouragement for part of this challenge to continue stepping out and walking, but also replace that fluid loss because, of course, we lose fluids when we sweat, our body's getting rid of this fluid. When we are running, we start losing weight, and most of the weight that we start losing and we start seeing it shedding off immediately is usually the water weight. So, at the end of the day, we need to replenish our bodies so that we are thriving bodies. And as again, as I said, I strongly believe we need to be wealthy, we need to be wise, and we need to have a good well being. I hope you have a good evening, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow on the next day of the fourth day of the challenge. Goodbye, and God bless.